I'm Charlie Taylor and welcome to Chapter 6. In this chapter, I'll be discussing how the telephone instrument and other devices which can be attached to your phone line can be used as an eavesdropping device. You know, the telephone instrument in your house actually makes an excellent eavesdropping device. The telephone instrument is usually located in what is referred to as the center area of conversation, has at least one device that can be used as a microphone, and is already pre-wired to an area outside of your home or office. In the old days, when telephone instruments were all electromechanical instead of electronic, there was a wide variety of ways to bypass the hook switch, or the on-off switch inside your telephone. Some of these ways required very expensive TSCM detection equipment, which would activate or detect high voltage activated switches and diodes. Today, electronic phones present a different type of challenge for both the eavesdropper and the TSCM technician, but the end result is still the same. However, the eavesdropper has many ways at his disposal to modify the wiring and the circuits inside a telephone instrument so that it will pass room audio down the telephone line while the phone is on hook. The beauty of this type of eavesdropping attack is that the eavesdropper is usually able to intercept both sides of a telephone conversation as well as room conversations without having to worry about batteries or running wires. And best of all, it doesn't cost anything. While I'm not going to go into all the techniques used to bypass the hook switch, I should at least give you one very simple example of how this is done. Typically, the telephone cable connecting your phone to the phone plug in your wall has an additional wire pair, or two wires, which are unused. It's relatively easy for an eavesdropper to use the additional wires to attach to the built-in microphone in your handset. By the way, you should know that the earpiece in your handset frequently makes a great microphone also. As a matter of fact, there's more than one component inside your telephone instrument that can also be used as a microphone. And since the telephone wires running to the phone plug in your wall is typically wired to an area leaving your room also, well, then the eavesdropper can connect the recording device or a radio transmitter to the supposedly unused pair of wires. Of course, there's many other ways to accomplish the same goal by simply modifying the telephone instrument so that audio flows down your actual telephone line when the phone is on hook. This type of attack should be a very serious concern for you because it's a very real threat. I have found this type of eavesdropping attack on the CEOs of two major large banks, a major oil company, and a major holding company traded over the New York Stock Exchange. And each time this is reported to the FBI or an appropriate law enforcement agency, they simply scratched their heads because they didn't know what to do about it. It was really a case of ignorance on their part since they didn't understand this type of eavesdropping and what to do about it. For them, unless there was a little black box they could lay their hands on, well, they were simply lost. By the way, this same type of attack can be performed on hardwired intercom systems. For example, I had one client whose CEO didn't like to use the built-in intercom function with his telephone system. So he had an intercom system installed, which allowed him to talk directly to many of his employees. Anyway, the intercom unit on his desk and both of his administrative assistants' desks clearly passed audio down the telephone system or the intercom system's wires while it was supposedly inactive. In this particular case, his intercom wires were connected to a telephone room over 1,000 feet from his office, and anyone attaching a simple amplifier to the intercom lines could clearly listen in to all the room conversations. Did somebody modify the intercom units to eavesdrop on them? Well, you can probably figure that on your own, but now it's time to move on. Perhaps one of the scariest eavesdropping devices is typically referred to as an infinity transmitter. These types of devices come in many flavors, shapes, and capabilities. I want to talk about this device in this chapter since it was originally designed to be installed inside the telephone instrument and could use the telephone's built-in microphones to eavesdrop on room conversations. Originally called the harmonica bug, the eavesdropper could call the target telephone line and activate the device with tones from a harmonica or a tone sequence generator. Then he could listen into room conversations from anywhere in the world. It was actually a pretty clever device since it used the telephone line power when it was activated. Of course, before the days of call waiting, these devices would tie up the telephone line, so anyone calling would get a busy signal. As the device became more popular, eavesdroppers would start to connect a separate phone line to the infinity transmitter to avoid tying up the target's phone line. Today, the infinity transmitter is frequently sold as a security device, which allows you to call home and make sure that no one is prowling about in your home. Sounds like a good excuse to me, doesn't it? Anyway, there are several companies that now manufacture infinity transmitters that can be remotely activated by using unique tricks. One in particular allows you to dial the target's number, let the phone ring once, and then quickly hang up. Then, within less than 10 seconds, dial the target's number again, and the device automatically activates, allowing the eavesdropper to listen into all the room conversations. Also, many of today's devices have an automatic disconnect, so if the target is receiving or starting to place a call, the device becomes inactive. One manufacturer has an infinity transmitter that will automatically dial you based on whether there's any sounds in the room. I hope you're getting the point here because I'm going to move on. Now, here's the really scary part about many of these devices as they're used today. Imagine, if you would, that the infinity transmitter is manufactured with a built-in cellular telephone. Of course, unless it was connected to your telephone line also, it would only pick up room conversations and not both sides of a telephone call. If you get the picture in your head, then you'll realize that the infinity transmitter now moves into the category of a radio bug that can be dialed up from any phone line, and can not only be installed in your office or home, but also in a car or just about any place someone wants to put it. If installed in a home or office, it can be connected to the electrical power and virtually last forever. If connected to the electrical system in a car, then it's pretty much the same situation. This is one of the reasons you might want to consider having the cars used by your key executives tested during a TSCM sweep. The beauty is that the eavesdropper can call the device from any normal telephone line and simply listen in. Or, if called from another cell phone, it allows a listening post to also become mobile. And best of all, or worst of all, depending on how you look at it, the device can be pretty difficult to detect. Also, a gadget guy can build one of these devices for less than $100. Over the internet, these devices typically sell in the range of $400 to $2,000. I think what bothers me the most about this type of eavesdropping device is that it can be easily used by an amateur eavesdropper who absolutely has no knowledge of sophisticated radio systems or the telephone system. Okay, I'm going to wrap up our discussion of telephone instrument modifications and infinity transmitters. We'll finish our discussion about eavesdropping devices in our next chapter, so I'll see you there.